come to the wrong workshop, then all I've got one word to say to you. Tough. That's the way it is. Seriously, you are in the right place. This afternoon, we are welcoming Tobias. Tobias Rodrigues. So come on, let's just say hi to him. Hey! That's great. Let me tell you a couple of things. He paid me to tell you these things, honestly, he did. He paid me well, actually. Yeah, it's good. This guy is highly qualified. He speaks to many people. He's an international person by nature. Okay? That's a good thing, I think. He has a wide variety of life experiences. He tells me this. He used to be fat and not into sports. Does he look like that now? Yes. The guy ran a triathlon recently. Fantastic. Okay. He used to be an expert troublemaker. I'm not sure about that one, anyway. And he says he used to be geeky, but he's not quite so geeky anymore, alright? He's living in Barcelona right now, and it's a good place to live, for sure. He has a lovely wife there and a daughter, and there are lots of stories about his experiences with wine, but I'm not going to bring all of them to you. He fell into a vat of wine. Now listen, nobody falls into a vat of wine. You climb in, for crying out loud. So there's the guy who fell in, apparently. Okay, at the moment his work is that he trains teams. He trains teams how to excel at working together to achieve fantastic things. He's worked with a few small companies you may have heard of before. eBay, HP, PayPal. We don't really know who these guys are, but anyway. He tells me today the workshop will be real, it will be fun, and you will go away changed. Who wants to go away changed? Hey, that's nearly everybody. Whoa, fantastic, that's great. Okay, he asks, are you ready for some straight talking? Yes. No sugarcoating this afternoon, okay? He has a kind of a life, I love this life statement of his. It says, life is a school with a free spa. Yeah, life is a school with a free spa. So are you ready to dive in? Yeah. Okay, let's give him a fantastic welcome. Well done.
I was standing, sweating and shaking outside my boss's office waiting to go in and tell him I was quitting. I had just returned from a master's degree, a master's abroad, a master's I had asked for, a master's the company had paid for. And there I was, about to go in and tell him I was leaving. And to make things just a little bit better, or bitter, the company was the Catholic Church. My boss, Bishop Antonio, and I, a priest about to go rogue. Now, for those of us a little bit hazy on this priest stuff, or still a little bit hungover from yesterday, priests quitting is not part of the protocol. It's not like marriage, where once you get divorced and you get the hang of it, you just can't let go. Once a priest, you die a priest. So there I was, 9 years and 17 days after I was made a priest, waiting to go in and tell my boss, my bishop, I was quitting. How do you do that? Do I walk in and go, hey Tony, I got some bad news, brother. I'm going to be quitting. I know this seems like a slap in the face, but you know what our man Jesus says? You got to turn the other cheek. I don't think so. At the time, I didn't know, but I tried using some Toastmasters magic. So while I was out there, I was like, correct posture. strengthen your voice. Fix it on your penetrating eye contact. But none of it worked. None of it worked. In fact, I felt more like the snail. I felt like that snail. It was like, okay, there's no going back now. But if I let go, I'm gonna fall. This wasn't the only difficult conversation that I've had. In fact, I've been very blessed to have had many of these shitty conversations. And I'm happy to say that more than one, I managed to totally fuck up. So it is in the quality of a failed conversationalist, my friends. Philoi, that's the Greek word for friends. I know they could have done better, but that's the one they have, so we'll work with it. Philoi, I am here as a failed conversationalist to share with you some of the lessons that I've learned that can help us have these difficult conversations and make things at least a little bit better. But before we begin, I want to make sure this is the right conference and the right room. I was told, or I heard earlier, that this is a club, an organization where people run away from their lives and try to find people that are willing to listen to their bullshit. Is that it?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And this is the room for all the fantastic Toastmasters that, when it comes to difficult conversations, mess it up. Is that it? Okay, it's good to be in a room with like-minded people, in a room like me, a room full of losers. Thank you for coming. Before we begin, I'd like you to greet the people around you. This is how you're going to do it. There's 2 rules. Rule number 1, you got to touch the person. Rule number 2, you can't touch their hands. So no hands touching hands. But other than that, you can do anything you want. You got 30 seconds. Greet the people around you. Go. Let's agree on something. We're going to be doing some work together, so to make things easier when I'd like to get the control of the room back, when I raise my hand, what do? You raise your hand and you close your mouth. The second part we tend to forget. We raise our hand and we keep on talking. Remember, you raise your hand and you close your mouth. That way we will be able to get this quickly going. Now, tough love. Right? There's 2 parts to tough love. There's the tough part and the love part. Well, the tough part about tough love is not the tough, it's the love part. See, the tough part we kind of get, which is the what we have to say, the hard things we have to say. What makes it difficult is the love part, how we convey it with love. So what we will be looking at are ways to, along with the tough, include the love part. It all comes down to tough love with love. Tough love with love. Tough love with love. Now, love is this big romantic idea, and we're going to try to pin it down. Right? We're going to make it very practical. I wanted it to be things that we can do instantly, immediately in our conversations. And that's why I've based all that I have to share with you on my personal first-hand experience. This is stuff that I got from conversations with prisoners and terminal patients. They improve your speaking skills fantastically. One of my first experiences walking into the hospital, there was a young man in the bed, and I walked in and I said, "Good morning, how are you?" Oh. And he looked at me and said, I don't know, you tell me. I'm 19 years old, I'm paralyzed from the neck down, and I've got sores on all my body because I can't move. How do you think I am? I learned that you say, good morning, how did you sleep tonight? These comes from conversations with prisoners who have absolutely no problem to tell you what they think. And if they think you're bullshitting you, they just tell you to F off, and that's fine. It's also based on lots of conversations I've had with many people along those 9 years that I was a priest, where they shared their life struggles, and I had the opportunity to listen and learn from them. And it's based on the last 7 years working in companies, helping teams have these conversations. And not only have the conversations, but manage not to hurt each other in the process, and make things better, and move forward. So based on this experience, I've come up with a tool, and you have the tool in front of you. The tool that helps us give tough love with love. So if you're looking at it thinking this looks like a photocopy from a kindergarten book, you're not too far away. Irene, my 4-year-old, I would always show her the pictures. You like this? And then she picked the other one. So this is our joint work. And you see an A and a T there. And that T stands for a tuner. And it's going to tune our conversation in regards to an A, which is agape, in the ancient Greek, and I think the modern Greek, they say agape. So that means love in Greek. So it's an agape tuner, A-T. It's a love tuner. And you'll notice there's 4 components. And each of those 4 components will allow us to tune our conversation so that we get the love in the tough love. To begin, and to make it real, there's some work for you to do. This part is in silence, and if you really don't feel like working, that's fine. I'll tell you like one of my theology teachers used to say, it's fine to sleep in class as long as you don't snore. On the flip side of the handout, there's a blank sheet, and on there, I'd like you to write down the following. Imagine the next difficult conversation that you're going to have. You're here for a reason, so you probably got something on your mind. And if you can't come up with nothing about the future, think of a conversation that you had in the past that you messed up. And what I'd like you to write down are the actual words that you're going to say. Skip the introduction, but write down what you were going to tell that person. You're going to get 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes to do so. Write as much as what you're willing to convey on the piece of paper. Once we've got that, then we'll see how the tuner works. Enjoy. If you got something written down, even if it's not all of it, that's perfect. This past February, I was doing a 2-day offsite with one of my fun and favorite clients, King, the creators of the Candy Crush. You guys know about that? Yeah. So, and it was during lunch, and I was willing to do, small talk. And I said, yeah, what do you guys think about democracy nowadays? It seems like it's in crisis. It doesn't seem like it's working given the recent... So I was touching on a topic with potential for tension, right? And then in front of me, there's this kind giant, a bell. He is a genius, one of the most intelligent people I know, but he's also very kind. He's got those two things. So what he did with me was kindly shred all of my arguments to nothing. And one by one, he picked them apart. And I was like, oh, and every time I'd come in with another argument or another explanation for why I brought up this topic and why democracy was in crisis, and I couldn't manage. And at the end of the conversation, at lunch finished, I said, what did I do wrong in this conversation? Why did this mess up? We could talk about this stuff, it could be. Right? And then I remembered his last words, which were, you know what, Tobias, when you want to talk about a topic like this, and I'm the public speaker, what you do is, you got to pick one very specific issue about democracy. And then once you get that issue, you break it down into smaller pieces. Having this general conversation is not going to help. And then that's when it hit me. I started a conversation without having no idea where it was going. And that's component number 1. When you want to have a conversation like this, you want to pick a destination. Where are you going with this? And sometimes tough conversations pop up in the mix of life and we immediately jump on the plane, take off, and then where are we landing? Do we have enough fuel? Can we get there? Do we want to go there? So pick a destination means something that is realistic, and something that's also kind for the person that you're talking to. There might be some destinations that they don't like. That's the first component. And you do that before the conversation. So this is something that we can do as homework regarding the conversation that you have in front of you. Realistic. Florian and I, we work at a Yes at Business School, and we do coaching there with the students. And part of the drill is coming up with a call to action at the end of their speech that they can do in the room. And some of the speeches, the question is, what do you want your audience to do by the end when you finish talking? And some people, the first round, the second round, they nail it perfectly. But the first time, you come up with these big things. So I want people in the room to quit smoking. In 3 minutes? Wow, you're going to put the pharmaceutical industry in trouble now. So make it something realistic. That's not too much of a flight. And something that is the best destination that your listener would like to go. Marshall Rosenberg, the creator of, anyone know Marshall Rosenberg? Yeah, good. He's got some very cool videos online. He's the creator of the nonviolent communication process. His videos are super fun. He uses a giraffe and a jackal. Very cool. And he coined a sentence, which is, it's difficult to do a don't. And this sentence apparently is from a folk song for kids. It's difficult to do a don't. It's difficult to do not doing. If I ask you not to interrupt, what are you going to do? Not to interrupt is not an action. It's difficult to do a don't. And that's why that component number 2 is getting rid of the no-nos. No-nos. So what do we do instead? Now, reasons why we want to be very attentive to not have negatives, for several reasons. Number 1, because they're difficult to implement. It's much easier if I say, wait until I finish talking. Now you know what to do. But other than that, negatives do not work. People in the room here who have children, there you go, who've been around children. When you tell a child, don't do this, it registers, do even more. And there's a psychological reason for that. The phenomenon is on the highways. There's nothing on either side of the highway. There's one friggin' post. One! And people manage to hit it. And Tony Robbins, one of the first coaches for personal development, says that where energy goes, where focus goes, energy goes. Where focus goes, energy flows. What we focus on, that's where we go. So if you focus on the negatives, what you're doing is you're reinforcing them. So negatives actually look like fertilizer on the weeds you want to kill. So we want to get rid of the negatives. How do we do that? We've got the knob there. You turn them from a negative into a wrong. Trick question. I like to scribble out the plus sign on the handout. On the top right-hand corner, scribble out the plus sign and put it in A there. And that A stands for? Agape now. That's a good one, eh? Applause for whoever said agape. That's thank you. Affirmative. There's a difference between positive and affirmative because some stuff in life is not positive. And what's shitty is shitty. It can't be. And I have a hard time with some of the people. You gotta be positive. You gotta be positive. Everything's gotta be positive. Calm down. Some stuff sucks. But there's a difference between negative and affirmative. What is the affirmative thing that you want the person to do? And that's the trick in component number 2. Tough love with love. Turn your negatives into affirmatives. If I asked you to think of a red fire truck, or not to think of a red fire truck, you have to think of it before you stop thinking of it. If I asked you to think of your favorite celebrity in a bus full of people, absolutely naked, the red fire truck is gone. So, exercise number 2 with your buddy right now. You're going to get 1 minute each. You're going to work fast. You're going to pick one of the negatives that you have scribbled down. And you're going to figure out what's the alternative action. What can you ask for more of instead of less? What? Turn that negative into affirmative. 1 minute each. Work together in buddies. Help each other. Getting better. Good job. Applause for yourselves. Good job. How many people in the room are in favor of slavery? 1. There's always a smartass. Always. Anybody here consider themselves a slave? Wow. I didn't expect that many. How about if I said that almost 100%, except for the smartass over there, everyone else in the room is a part-time slave? I work for a living. So the concept of slavery is you've got the master and you've got the slave. The master commands the slave and the slave obeys the master. He obeys the master not because he agrees or does it willingly, but he does it because it's his obligation, otherwise he gets the shit kicked out of him. And the question now is, how do the masters express their commands? What is the language of obligation? Must. More. Should. More.
Will.
I want you to. Have to.
You will.
You will, the imperative, and there's also a subtle one, need to. You need to. So need to is subtle, have to is very common, should is the moralistic. I call it the widow from the village dressed in black that knows exactly what everyone in the village should do. You should do that. So that's the language of imposition. Now my question is, in your text and in our conversations, do you use this language of slavery? And I can tell you right now that it's all over the place. And if the rest of the conference you start listening to it, it's always there. We have to, we should, we need. My daughter, she's 4-year-old, and I know she picked it up from school because I speak Portuguese to her, Mom speaks Spanish, and school is in English. And when we play teacher, she's always telling me, you have to do this and you have to do that. And it's a plague, because it's the language of slavery. So, component number 3 is to free yourself and to free your listener from the should slavery and bring them into the WCC freedom. What is the WCC freedom? How do we express autonomy and freedom in language? Want. And want goes well with we, not with I. We want. Could, the land potential. And Obama said, yes, we have to. Can. So we have want, can, and could. Homework. We don't have time to do it here. Every time one of the slavery language comes up, the shoulds, the have tos, the needs to, you want to change them into a want, a can, or a could. Yes, want goes very well with we want. We want to finish this today. We don't have to. We want to because if we don't, boss is going to get angry, we're going to stay over time, it's going to be a mess. You could do this differently. And you can is very empowering. It gives the person the sense that they can actually accomplish something. So that sets your listener free. One of my first and early days visiting the jail, I was still a seminarian, and we'd go every Saturday, and our history teacher, Father Jacinto, he'd go with us. We were 3 or 4, and we'd walk there, sometimes grab a cab. And on one particular Saturday, I remember we were having a conversation because there had a tragedy had happened that week. Mario, our friend from the community, a cab driver, 3 kids, nice guy, stand-up citizen, he'd help the community, he was always willing to participate, go to church every single day. This guy, on that week, there was the Derby soccer football game, and he was much of a fan, and so was his neighbor, but his neighbor was from an opposite team as he was, and he was sitting at home watching the game, and then they were both making noise, and at a certain point he got up, went upstairs, knocked on the door, his neighbor opened the door, and he stabbed him, and his neighbor died. And, yeah, what? It's really what? And they were going on the way to the jail going, and I said to Father Jacinto, I said, the other guys, it's not that I justify them, but if you grow up in a difficult environment, if you're surrounded with bad situations, if there's addiction in your life, if you've been around this stuff all the time, you kind of get that people might end up doing the wrong things. But this thing from Mario, I just can't get it. How could? And he said, Tobias, hoje não é o dia da última vinda. Today is not Judgment Day. Component number 4 is to suspend, to postpone our judgments. And there's a very simple and frequent way that we do that in our conversations. Imagine a factory that does jarred pickles. And you got the pickles all in the jar, and I've got the vinegar and all the right stuff, and then they're all closed now. And they're just going down the assembly line, and it gets to the part where they're going to put on the label. So it passes through a machine, and you put a bit of glue on it. And then it goes right to the next machine, which passes a piece of paper, and it gets stuck. And it's very quickly and very efficient. Has anyone tried to remove a label from a pickle jar? Yeah. I've got 2 words for it. Impossible. That is what happens when we judge. We label. By the way, this metaphor, I'm not sure if it's mine or if it's from a podcast. I fell asleep the other day and I woke up with it in my mind. I don't know if I heard it or if I came up with it. But judgment is labeling. And the way that we use judgment and labeling in language is with the verb to... Exactly. Who said that? Your name is? Kate. Can we have an applause for Kate? Thank you, Kate. When it comes to tough love, Shakespeare was good with the soft love, with Romeo and Juliet. But tough love, Shakespeare was wrong. It's not to be or not to be, because the verb to be talks to who I am, my identity. And when you talk about my identity, it's like talking about my mama. Don't talk about my mama. And then changing who we are, how easy is that? The last time you tried, it was perfect, wasn't it? And now you're setting yourself up to change someone else. Good luck, you're screwed. So the verb to be is poisonous. I call it the genderless, bisexual slut of grammar. It goes with everyone, no conditions apparently, and then in the end everything goes wrong. Whenever we don't know what to say, we just sneak in the verb to be. You can be more this, you can be more that. And we want to be more this, we want to be more that. And then identity, well, obviously the inner voice, that, there's an inner voice that we have a hard time turning off. And that voice doesn't want to be changed. So every time somebody says, you could be more organized, the person looks at you with that grin. And then the voice says, you motherfucker. Who do you tell me to be more organized? Huh? You're a messy guy. I'm super organized. Get out of here. My inner voice is from Texas. How do we get rid of the verb to be? What we do is we make the verb to be an action. And this requires some thought and some practice. But if we look at it, 2 considerations. Number 1, there really is no being in itself. So just 1 consideration, not 2. 1. We access being through doing. If I came up here and sat here for 45 minutes, you would know nothing about me except for the fact that I'm a weird guy that sits for 45 minutes in front of a crowd. You know who I am by what I do. So the question you want to ask yourself in making be an action is, what does the person need to do that is representative of what I want them to be? An example, you could be more proactive means something for my boss and something very differently for my wife. Right? So what is proactivity? You can come up early. You can ask for more work. You can be on top. It doesn't matter. So what are the actions that represent being? And that gives us our agape tuner. That is made to give tough love with love. And it's got 4 components that help us do the tough love part, do the tough part well, but we also do the love part. Tough love with love. Number 1, you have to pick a destination. If you don't know where you're going to go, this is going to crash. Number 2, turn those negatives into affirmatives. If we don't turn that into an affirmative, what happens is we're going to hit that post in the middle of the highway. We're going to reinforce what we don't want. So turning negatives into affirmatives is a way of giving tough love with love. Very practical. Number 3, in getting more empowering, is to free ourselves from this tyranny, from the should slavery that keeps us bound to do a bunch of stuff. And if we look at it, there are no real obligations. The foundation of every obligation is a choice. You don't have to go to work. You choose to go to work because you want to get paid. But you don't have to. Many people stay at home and don't go to work. And if you figure out a way of getting paid without going to work, please tell me. I'm willing to learn. And then the fourth component to give tough love with love is to suspend judgment. And we suspend judgment by making the verb to be an action. There we have it, the tough love. Agape tuner. If you would like to receive this slide, on the handout I have my email. If you send me an email, I will mail it to you. Now before we go, we want to make this as actionable as possible. So I'd like you to think of someone that is not in the room. It could be at the conference, but not in the room. Someone that you will be able to bring this weird piece of paper, and that person who knows you will tell you which of the four components you can improve the most. And it could be a child. Children, 6-year-olds, they're absolutely smart, and they'll give you no bullshit. So it's perfect audience to test. So of the four components, we don't want to be self-judges. This is for other people, so we'll go out and ask this. Someone in your life that knows you well enough that they can tell you, listen, this is the one that I'd like to see you implement next. You'll start from one. It's very simple. Now going back to that July of the year 2009, 9 years ago, I don't remember the exact words that I told my bishop. I remember that I was very transparent in what I said. I told him the truth. I didn't hide anything. I remember being direct. And I remember feeling like I was naked. And I explained to him that those 9 years had been wonderful years. It was a fantastic journey. I enjoyed it a lot, learned a lot, and think that I did some good along the way, and also some mess-ups. And that along that path, from the beginning, I had convinced myself that I would be part of a bigger change, of some kind of a revolution. I was expecting that the church would, modernize, change, not be, do things differently and faster, and perhaps focus on some more essential issues on my committee. And I was convinced that was going to happen, and that's why I asked to go to Rome, and I did my master's in Rome. And when I got there, and I explained this to the bishop, I saw that that's not the way that it works. And it was my mistake. The church is 2,000 years old, and something that's 2,000 years old, takes a step very slowly. And then make sure you don't put it in the wrong place so you don't fall. And I faced that reality. I had two choices. Either I can accept and adapt, or accept and move on. I tried the first one, and many of my colleagues did, and they do it very well. They accept the fact that they're not going to see that change within their lifetime. And some of them do it very well. I tried doing it, but my unhappiness ended up rubbing off on other people, and I was already making other people unhappy in the communities and the people that I connected with. So the choice became simple for me, and that's why I had to go. But I had this big problem, which was 4 years in Rome, 6 months in Jerusalem, all on the budget of the diocese, of the Catholic Church. And I told them that I didn't know what to do. I had to go. But I didn't have the money to pay it. And even though I don't remember my words, I'll never forget Bishop Antonio's words. He said, "We made a very big investment in you. And we want that investment to pay off. We want that to turn into some kind of benefit for humanity, for people. And we're expecting for you to do that. Now, if you do that within the church, or outside the church, quite frankly, it doesn't matter." So I learned that day that if we are transparent with our thoughts, if we share our thoughts totally, if we hold nothing back, if we go directly to what we have to say, if we are willing to feel naked in front of someone, if we give that tough love with love, the love has power in it. And these conversations, you in the room, there's love behind all of this. There's a lot of the tough stuff, but the love's there. And if we dare to be transparent, who dare to be direct and naked, the love will surface. And as the love surfaces, it will be much easier to give tough love.
Ladies, gentlemen, friends, did you enjoy that?
Yeah!
Kind of more important than that, do you feel you've gone away with some deposit of something strong? Yeah, I see a lot of people nodding. We go to many seminars about how to speak better, how to listen better, evaluate, do all these things that we listen to. And then we come to a seminar or a workshop like this where something touches us and you say, wow, I can go home and talk to my spouse, my boyfriend, girlfriend, or all three of them. I can speak to all of them better. I can speak to my kids better, my work colleagues, my neighbours. I can show those kind of challenging moments, but I can do it really well. We're going to wrap up the workshop. I know, Tobias, you're going to be around for a few minutes, so if you want to catch up and ask him something particularly important. But please, let's just give him one last huge round of applause. Fantastic. Okay, please don't leave any of your belongings here. If you want to leave money, leave it on the table next to me. That'll be fine. Tobias is not going to be here afterwards. He's going to be just outside, out in the foyer. Thank you for joining us. Have a great afternoon.